All right, so we were just talking about this right triangle, this right angle over here, angle B. And then we have this angle, we were talking about this symbol, it's the Greek letter theta. And we use that in math a lot to represent angles. So we're going to pretend sort of that you're standing at theta and looking at the whole triangle. So when we're naming sides of a triangle, the first one I like to do is hypotenuse, because that's the easy one. So the hypotenuse would be this side over here, which I'm going to mark with an H. It's always across from the right angle. Okay? Now over here, I'm going to show you a little bit of geometry stuff. So if I am naming this side of the triangle, you name it by its endpoint. So the hypotenuse is AC, and then they put a little bar over it, and that means segment AC. Isn't that cool? Yeah, so we're getting some geometry stuff in there. And so if that ever comes up, what we're going to do on our assignment is mostly just mark them on the triangle, but I wanted to show you guys this because at some point you may be asked to name them, and it's pretty simple. Okay, so if I'm looking at my angle theta here, the side that is across from it, that's not touching it, is the opposite. So the opposite side would be over here, AB. And here's how I think about that. If I'm sitting at a table and I'm across from someone, they are opposite me. We don't talk that way very much anymore, but if someone is opposite you and you're talking, that means you're facing each other on different sides. So that's the opposite side. And then the side that's left right here, it's part of angle theta, but it's not the hypotenuse. They call that the adjacent side. Adjacent means next to. And so it's next to the angle, but it can't be this one because that's the hypotenuse. Oh, I forgot to put my line on AB. Hang on. So there's AB. And then the adjacent side would be BC. So I'm trying to color code everything. So I want you to think about, so opposite means across from. Adjacent, I'm having trouble with my markers. Adjacent means next to. And that's in real life, outside of math. That's what they mean. But sometimes that can help you remember. And then the hypotenuse is the same side it's always been. It's always across from the right angle, and it is the longest side. Now, your opposite and adjacent, let me grab just a black marker. Your opposite and adjacent are still the legs of your right triangle. We're just naming them specifically now with a specific angle. So opposite of theta is across from theta, adjacent's next to it, and the hypotenuse is still the side that doesn't have the right angle. So opposite and adjacent will always be the legs. They make up the right angle. And then hypotenuse is still over there. Okay? So let's take a look at the next one. Now theta's at the top. They can turn this triangle however they want. They're all right triangles.
Get off the screen.
I'm off the screen. Let me go up here. So the easiest one to do is usually the hypotenuse. So can you tell me which side is the hypotenuse? It'll be the longest side. So name it from the P to the R. That's correct. So the hypotenuse is segment PR. And then I'm just going to mark that with an H for hypotenuse on here, because this is what's going to be helpful to us when we're doing trig. Okay, and then we look at the angle. So my angle's up here, and you want to think what's across from the angle, because what's across from it is the opposite. So this is my opposite side. So I call that PQ. And then this side is next to the angle. It's actually part of the angle. It's that other side that's not the hypotenuse. So that's my adjacent side, and I can call that RQ. And you can actually switch these around. You could also call it QR if you're looking at geometry. So just a little bit of geometry terminology there. Okay, let's do the next one. Let me zoom in a little bit more. Okay, so on the next one, tell me which side is the hypotenuse?
X to the Y.
From the x to the y. So we call that xy. You just say xy. And so this would be my hypotenuse. Good. Here's my angle theta. Which side would be opposite of theta?
It would be Y to the Z.
Y to the Z. So you can call it YZ or you can call it ZY. It actually doesn't matter. So this would be my opposite side. It's across from theta. And then the adjacent side, sort of the one that's left, but it's also next to your angle. So this would be adjacent side, and we could call that XZ or ZX. And then this little bar above it just tells me that it's a segment, that it has endpoints. It's not a line that goes forever, or it would have arrows. Okay, so one more that we'll do together, and then we'll do one on your own. It should be easy. I wanted to start with baby steps. This is the first thing you have to understand if you're going to do trig. Okay, so on the next one, what's my hypotenuse?
N and L.
Between N and L. Good job. So you could call it NL, or you can call it LN. Both are correct. So that's my hypotenuse. I like to mark that one first because in my brain that one's easiest. Okay, so here's theta. Which side is opposite theta?
ML.
ML, good. So this is opposite. So I'll call that ML, or you can call it LM, either way. As long as you have both endpoints, you're naming the same segment. And then adjacent would just be the one that's left over down here, which we could call MN or NM. Okay.
I think that's like the quickest one.
Yeah, it's pretty fast. So let's do a practice problem. Grab your pencil, and we're actually going to draw this example. I'm just going to do one. So let me think about how I want to do that. So I'm going to make my right angle kind of like this. So this is my right angle. But I'm going to have it turned a little bit. And I'm going to say this is theta down here. So I want you to draw it and just write in the opposite, adjacent, and hypotenuse. So this is the right angle, and that's theta. So all I want you to do is write in opposite, adjacent, and hypotenuse on the triangle.